Hi, Katie.
Hi, how are
How
you?
are you?
I'm so good. It wasn't letting me request, but
I
obviously then
know.
it did.
I noticed, and then I went in and I was like, I'm just gonna add her. We're just gonna add her real
Okay,
quick.
good.
I
That's what's
am.
been happening lately. How are
Instagram is funny,
you?
Katie. I'm good. I'm so excited to talk to you. I was thinking
Yes.
about it today. The last time we talked was when you were writing this book back in like April and May. So, first of
Yeah,
all, congratulations. At least you
thank
look
you.
good. I would love it if we could start, if you could just share a little bit about your new book.
Yeah,
I know I want to tell people to listen to our podcast episode together too, because I know
yeah.
you dived into so much of it then too. But I mean, let me do a little intro on you too.
Okay.
Katie DePaola is an entrepreneur, author, founder of, and I don't want to mess this up, but globally recognized training program, Inner Glow Circle. And your company is really dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs find their glow and really live their purpose driven lives. And I think that's what really excited me, like to talk to you back in May because of this personal healing journey that you've really been on. So let's talk a little bit first, if we could, about At Least You Look Good, because it's really this beautiful, I think, modern guide to healing inspired by your journey.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And I loved our interview when we first did our podcast together. And so, At Least You Look Good. The subtitle is called Learning to Glow Through What You Go Through. So basically, I went through three really big life soul shakeups back to back, including chronic illness, the loss of my youngest brother, and then a really, really scary, toxic, abusive relationship that I escaped my way out of. And so
Yeah.
all of these things were happening at once in my life. And although it was so challenging, and I talk a lot, I'm very vulnerable about my mental health challenges and what I had to go through in order to come out on the other side and glow through what I've gone through. It built so much resilience in me. And I really believe that resilience is a muscle. And the weird part there is like it doesn't get strengthened unless we activate it, right?
Mhm.
So as I was going through all of these things, my prayer, my request to God, the universe, whatever, was like, if I'm gonna go through all of this, make it worth something.
Yeah.
Help me, teach me, and help me teach other people. And so a lot of those lessons are in the book, and it's definitely my story of becoming more resilient, but it's also a guide, a manual to becoming more resilient in business and in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, I love what you said about resilience, how it's a muscle that we have to build. And I find that often, we go through these different life experiences and we don't know the purpose behind them. We face adversity, we have struggle, but then on the other end of that is also this beautiful sense of joy and celebration that can come through making it through to the other side of what it is that you're
Yeah.
experiencing. And so I think it's such a powerful message what you share in the book, because if you can look at resilience as that suit of armor you wear or to help you make it through, it's part of your path, it's part of your journey. It allows you to really step in fully to who you are and what you're meant to do. I just think it's so powerful and such a timely reminder. I think this year, especially as we are faced with things we have never been faced with before. And so
Right.
developing that sense of resilience for yourself now and knowing that what you're experiencing is preparing you for the next. It's like part of the tools in your toolbox.
Well, and so the title that I go by is Mindset and Resilience Expert. And I really believe in having a resilience mindset, which means coming at different situations in life, regardless of how big or small they are, with the mindset of what can I learn from this? And
Yeah.
sometimes we can't get there right away, right? We're not in a position to learn. We're just grieving, or we're just in pain, or we're just experiencing whatever we're going through. But ultimately, at some point, if we want to see, I don't know if the right word is lesson, because like I don't necessarily believe that there's a lesson in every hard thing. But what I do think is that we can utilize our pain and the things that we go through for something productive, for
Mhm.
something that expands our world, that serves us, that serves other people. And so
Yeah.
for me, like this hope, this faith that everything that I was going through was going to one day amount to something, that it was going to one day, um, you know, almost outweigh the pain. Like
Mhm.
I had this vision for the future that was more powerful than the pain that I was experiencing in the moment. And that single concept is what helped me get through everything I went through.
Hmm. I think what you said is so profound and interesting because it's not so much about maybe finding the lesson for yourself in that moment, but allowing yourself to experience what you're experiencing. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we resist that. We resist the emotions, we resist the feelings, we resist allowing ourselves to experience what we're meant to, in that moment. And I think if we can focus in a difficult time on, okay, let me just be here right now, I
Yeah.
think that's like a bit of a saving grace at times.
Yeah. I'm gonna pop because I know we're gonna talk about it, but I'm gonna pop the link for
Yes,
the
please.
book into the comments, and then if you could pin it, that would be great.
Yeah, I would love
Um,
to do that. So, where can everybody find the book, by the way? I know it's on your website, but is it on Amazon and everywhere else
yeah,
too?
it's on Amazon. You can get it. I go to innerglowcircle.com/book, and that will take you to all the places. The ebook is 99 cents through Friday. So that's really fun for people who like reading on their Kindles or iPads or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I felt really limited at different times by my circumstances. And I think that's how a lot of us feel.
Yeah.
And there's this whole conversation happening right now, about 2020. And do you need to be super productive during 2020 and like launch a business or write a book? Or is it okay if this year has just kind of passed you by? And I'm
Hmm.
sort of in the mindset of both, that it's important to just be where we are. It's important to feel our feelings. It's important to grieve. Coping is a process, it's an experience that we have to go through. We can't push ourselves through, we can't skip over the grief. And a
Yeah.
lot of us are experiencing grief this year. There's a lot of pain and, um, you know, like desiring of what was. And I
Hmm.
think that that's one thing that this year has really shown us. And at the same time, I just think it's so important for people to know that they have a choice. Like,
Hmm.
if they want to create something out of this year, whether it's, I got so much rest this year, I just feel really rejuvenated. Or if it's like I wrote a book or I started a book, or I started a business, or whatever it is. Like, I think it's really important for us to know that we can create beauty out of our circumstances. Our circumstances don't have to just be where things end, right?
Hmm.
Like, we can be going through uncomfortable situations in our lives and still create something really magical and powerful out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, this time I think can be what you make it for yourself. And what you said about grief, I think, is really interesting. And it reminds me of something I shared in my 2020 wrap up episode I aired last week on the show, which is that I think for the first time, we are starting to see more of the humanity in others because we're all bonded by this universal grief. It's a
Yeah.
grief over what was, it's a grief over what we've lost, whether it's tangible,
Yeah.
a family member, a loved one, and we're all bonded by this sense of grief, and it's reminding us of our sense of humanity. But within grief too is taking care of yourself, which I think some of us struggle with when we are experiencing grief. And you have two really beautiful chapters in the book that focus on self-care. And if we could, I would love to talk about those
Sure.
chapters a little bit, because what you say in the book, and I wrote it down because I don't want to mess this up, but you bring up a really good point in the book about how effective self care is really about showing care to yourself. And it's about learning to fill your own cup rather than letting other people do the pouring. And when I read that in the book, I thought, excuse my language, I literally was like, holy shit. Because if we can learn
Yeah.
to fill ourselves up and really take care of ourselves and look at self-care through that lens, I think it changes everything. So I would love to share a little bit about that, talk a little bit about that, because what does it mean for you, I think, in 2020, and I know you share this in the book too, but to really begin to prioritize that sense of inner self-care for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I feel when shit started to go down in the beginning of this year and we started to realize like what we were walking into,
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like, okay, I have a bit of an advantage here because I've already learned how to be so resilient. And I've already trained my brain to see like what's the opportunity here? What's the opportunity here in every hard thing? And so I think that what I had to learn to do when I was going through that period of my life where, shit was hitting the fan in every direction was I had to learn how to be an advocate for myself. And I
Mm,
had to learn how to listen to myself. I had to learn how to know what I need. And I had to be responsible. Like, it's no one else's responsibility to like manage my mood or manage my to do list, or I have to manage my own stuff, right? And I think
yeah.
a big part of that is also self care because for me, someone who has lived with years of chronic illness, someone who's experienced tragic loss and quite a traumatic loss, for someone who has experienced physical, emotional abuse from a partner, someone I was engaged to, it is difficult to know what I need. It's really, really difficult. And I think a lot of us feel that way. When someone
Mm-hmm.
asks us, like, what do you need? What do you need right now? We're like, I don't know, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we're so used to not knowing what we need and being out of touch with ourselves. But I just don't think that's going to cut it anymore.
Yeah.
I think that this year we have to get responsible for who we are in the world. We have to get responsible for who we want to be that we haven't yet fully become. And we have to take the steps, right? I also talk a lot in the book about creating sort of a vision for your future self and then working backwards and saying, like, well, what would, the version of Katie who has this and does this and manages this, what would she do? How would she approach this? And a
Yeah.
lot of my own insight I get from fast forwarding and looking at my future vision of myself and my own life. And then I can backtrack and say, okay, what kind of self care does that woman need? What kind of conversations does that woman need to be having with her partner, with people at work, right? And what
Yeah.
can she take on and what's just too much? We're always pushing ourselves. And I think if you're type A, overachiever, like you're always over pushing
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And I don't think that's all bad. But again, we have to come back to, balance and make sure we're prioritizing ourselves and our bodies. And I do think this year has taught us that because we're not in our normal routines at all.
Yeah, I think what you said is so interesting about looking towards the future self. Like, what will I need in the future to get me there? What do I need to start doing today to help me get there? And in the book, you talk about how self care is so much more than sort of what society often tells us it is. It's about setting good boundaries, it's about going to therapy. And I have found this year, especially, my self care has been a lot of what do I need to help me feel good that's not necessarily something I even want to do or something I even like to do, but it's about prioritizing that care over maybe what I feel like in the moment. Like, what if I'm in a really bad mood and the only thing that's going to get me out of it is exercise, but the last thing I want to do is exercise. But I do
Right.
it anyway and I feel better after. I love that you
Totally.
talk about that in the book because I think it's that point that more of us are starting to understand and really embrace and put our arms around that, hey, self
Yeah.
care is so much more than we've been told or taught that it is.
Yeah. And like perhaps also the self care that used to be enough is not going to cut it anymore. And I think that's a really important learning too, right? That like the way I think of it is I often think about what I want to have in my life, right? So
Mhm.
I'm not married yet. I'm in a relationship, but we're not married. I don't have any kids and I want to have kids. I want to write more books. I want to shift my career a little bit and also maintain the business that I've created. And so that means putting more on my plate than is on my plate right now.
Mhm.
So, in order to be able to have those things, most of us just think about, okay, well, what do I need to do? What books do I need to read? What podcasts do I need to listen to? And I think all of that's incredibly helpful. But what I also spend a lot of time thinking about is, who do I need to become? Who do I need to become to be able to have all of those things, right? And a lot of us feel like we're just getting by. A lot of
Mhm.
us always feel like we're just getting by, like we're just making it work. We're just making it happen, whether it's financially, emotionally, et cetera, et cetera. And so in order to like up level, as we talk about up leveling, right? Jumping to this next tier in our lives, in our careers, in our financially, we have to think about, well, who do I need to become in order to be that person?
Mhm.
And so I think that's a really important thing too. Like as we look at self-care and as we look at the healing process, asking yourself, who do I want to become? Who do I want to be after all of this? Who do I want to be in the midst of all of this? And what would the person like that do? What would the person like that say? How would they operate in the world?
Mhm. I love that. And it reminds me of what you talk in the book about being self-care instead of doing,
Yeah,
which I think is so profound. I think I had shared this with you in an email, but I had never heard somebody phrase self-care in that way, that it's really about embodying all of it. Just like you shared, the future self. Who do I need to be? Who do I want to be? What do I need to do to get there? And it's not just about the doing of, I took a bath, I went on a walk, I called a friend. It's about being it, embodying that sense of self-care for yourself. You
yeah.
talk also in the book, which I think is, oh, we've got some fire trucks outside.
I thought
Um,
that was here.
yeah, I know, life in the city, right?
Yeah,
You talk also in the book, which I think is so interesting, about how surface self care is actually not necessarily something that's bad for you, that it
right.
serves a purpose. And I love what you say in the book, how, like, using that surface self care, maybe it's a bath, maybe it's a call with a friend, etc., is part of the pieces that you need to help get yourself there. Um, when did you like have that realization for yourself? Because I think we either feel like the self-care that society talks to us about is like enough, or we're on in the other camp where we're like, this is BS, it's not enough, I need to do a lot more. When did this like click for you?
I think that it clicked for me when it wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I just realized it wasn't working. It wasn't like getting me out of the spot that I was in. And I realized how much my mindset and how much my mental health um, were affected by how I felt about things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't matter if I was just sort of like checking things off of a list without experiencing them, without being connected to what I was doing. I had to actually go deeper. And so for me, just checking the things off the list has never worked. It's
Mm-hmm.
never worked. And I don't think it's enough for most people. I don't think that most people really can just run through the checklist of their lives and have that be enough. But what they might not understand is what's missing. And so for me, starting to examine, okay, what if I actually become self caring? What if I actually start to care about myself?
Mm-hmm.
That became like this radical idea, which in this moment seems so simple, but it felt really radical in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially when that's not something that we see in the mainstream focus of wellness or spirituality or even health in general. So if someone is listening to this or watching this right now, and this is resonating for them, they really want to start being self care and take care of themselves in that way, where is a good place to start to not just check off, boxes on a list, but to really start to care for themselves in the same way that you talk about in your book and that you've been able to do in your own life.
I think they should get my book.
It's a good place to
I think
start.
that's a great step. I think watching someone else's journey of tapping in and answering the questions that I ask in the book, because it is a lot about my own story, but it's also challenging the reader to go deep within themselves. So I think that's a great place to start. But I also think just like slowing down and listening to yourself. And I talk in the book about how I started to track like what was making me feel better and what was making me feel worse, and started to
Yeah.
build these lists for myself. I mean, if you do a workout and you feel really good, but then the first thing you do is open social media and all of a sudden you feel like shit again, you have to notice that. If you don't notice that, then you're kind of screwing yourself over, because you're just, whatever you gain, you're losing right away, right? And so it's like in the nuanced studying of the self, which my self is different than your self is different than whoever's watching this, but it's in the nuanced studying of the self and paying attention to the self that we find answers, that we
Mm-hmm.
find freedom. And I think when you get an awareness, you have to then act on it. Like
Yeah.
if you get an awareness and you don't do anything, or you don't change anything, or you keep, exposing yourself to something that's actually like harming you, even if it's just affecting your mood, like ultimately it's harming you, then, it's really important that you change your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like a good place to start is A, get the book, and then B, do a sort of like an internal audit for yourself of,
Yeah.
hey, what makes me feel good? What doesn't make me feel good? And then moving from there. I love that advice because I think we often forget that our self-care is going to be unique to our own needs and what really resonates for us. It's not going to be nothing in this life is one size fits all. So if we can remember that for ourselves, I think that's huge.
Yeah, totally. And like, you are worth paying attention to. So as much as you want to like look at that Instagram influencers, um, wrap up of like her 2020 year and what she did, and it's great, and there can be a lot of inspiration found in those places. But what I'd rather see you do, not you, but like anyone, what I'd rather see us do is take an inventory of ourselves and take an inventory of what's going on for us as individuals. I think we spend a lot of time looking outward when we need to look inward, and that then we end up landing farther away, not closer to what we said we would do.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I'm so happy that you shared that too because it really is about checking in with yourself. This whole journey is of life is about checking in with yourself. I know we're coming close to the end of our time together and I have so enjoyed reading your book and I'm excited for anyone watching and listening to check it out as well. But I'm curious what has been your biggest takeaway, from the book, from the journey of writing it? Like I said at the beginning of our live together, you and I connected while you were in the thick of writing the book
Yeah.
earlier this year. So, yeah, what has been the biggest takeaway for you?
Yeah, I think, in the very beginning of my book, I share my 5 rules of life. And one of the rules is to take giving up off the table. And
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that. Like, I really believe that when you want something, when you have a vision for something, when you see what's possible, um, you have to take giving up off the table, because there will be so many barriers along the way. So many barriers, right? Like you're starting your podcast and there's tech glitches, or you're trying to get on live and the internet's not connecting, or you're writing a book and then you hate what you wrote. I mean, the ego is so loud, and great
Mm-hmm.
things just take time. They take work, they take experimentation, they take doing and redoing. If I like could tell my younger self how many times I would like redo something or rework something, I just think we put all this pressure on ourselves and then we do nothing. And so I think it's just so, so, so important to take giving up off the table and remove that as an option, and then see what else exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep going, keep trying, keep experimenting, trial and error. If it doesn't work one way, try something else. I love that that's been such a huge takeaway for you from writing the book and working on it. And, I don't think we talked about this at the beginning, but who is At Least You Look Good for? Is it? I feel like it's for everybody, but who is the book for?
Yeah, it's for everybody, but specifically, it's for someone who is trying to heal a broken heart, someone who's recovering from loss of a job, loss of income, loss of a family member, loss of a partner. Um, Anyone who's going through hard stuff, but like wants a uh, funny and sarcastic and entertaining guide along the way. I think that's who it's for, and I think that's what it's for. That was my purpose in creating this book, is like a lot of people have written to me and said that they feel like it's like talking to a best friend, and that's what I really wanted, and I think that's who it's for, someone who's looking for that.
I think I just have loved the book and loved connecting with you. And it really tells, you have such an incredible story. We didn't really even get too much into it, but you have such an incredible story. And the book really chronicles this comeback that you've had from, like you shared, a broken heart, a deep loss within your family, your struggles with your health. And to see the culmination of it in this book has had to have been such an incredible, proud, exciting moment for you. Like when you saw the book for the first time, I have to ask you this. When you saw it and you saw the cover and you were holding it, like what was that experience like? Because I can imagine it was like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I can imagine it was huge.
Yeah, I mean, I was really proud of myself. Like I was really proud of myself. And I think there have been different moments along the way. Like first I saw the ebook because I had to do like a final read through, and then like I saw the cover printed out, and then I got like a huge shipment in the mail, and every time, it's been like, wow, it's there was something, I shared this on my social media, but I was talking about how when I saw the final like the final layout of the book, and I read the disclaimer, which says like, this work is nonfiction and as such reflects the author's memory of experiences. And it's basically saying like I used fake names, and I was like, oh my God, Katie, you've just been through so much. You've been through so much drama. You've been through so much like amazing, incredible stuff, and so much so that you had to hide to remove people's names. But there were moments, many moments, not moments, but there were years where I was going through so much that I was like, literally, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. And I know that probably sounds crazy because I'm like just like a normal girl in my office, like who has a book, but I really didn't know if I was going to live my life the way that I thought I was, for multiple reasons. And so I think, it's very much a story of survival. But I think it's really relatable. I think it's really relatable. And I think it really helps us rethink how we approach disappointments in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And your overall message of really, you can overcome whatever life throws at you, and you can learn to glow through what you go through, I think is timely. It's relatable. It's an amazing read. I will, of course, link the book when I post this live later. Katie, I can't thank you enough for including Seek the Joy podcast as part of your book tour. Where can everybody, let's just tell them one more time where they can find the book, obviously find you, connect, and then share the book too after they read it. I think, word of mouth is huge. So where can everybody find it?
Yeah. So go to innerglowcircle.com/book, and you can find me on Instagram at it's Katie DePaola, and my company is at Inner Glow Circle. We share a ton of inspirational stuff. And yeah, thank you so much. You're just so sweet and so lovely and so easy to talk to, and you're helping so many people through the work that you're doing. So I love hanging out with you. It's fun.
Oh, you're so sweet. I feel like it's been too long since we connected. Like May feels like eons ago.
Oh my
but I
gosh.
really appreciate that, and I loved connecting with you as well. And just thank you so much again. And this was fun. We need to do something like this more often.
We totally should.
It would be lovely. But everybody, check out Katie's new book. We'll link it. And thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. At least, what was I going to say? I don't know the last thing I was going to say, but Katie's book is available on innerglowcircle.com/book. We'll link it. Thanks, Katie. I'm so excited.
Thanks, hon.
Have a good day.